Howdy, Janet.
Hello, dear. How are you?
Good. All right.
Can you guys hear me? No, not that again. How's that? Oh,
Okay.
there I am.
I'll put this here. So, life is kind of an in-your-face productions, isn't it? Yes.
Indeed.
Right. So I guess about 7 or so, you heard from Duke that he wasn't doing well, and then she called me and she said, "So what do you think we should do?" And we both said David Westbrook, who's back there, and David didn't answer his phone, so I called back. I said, "I think we're just going to do this thing," and a couple of months ago, I said, "Janet, you and I should do a talk together," and here we are. And I just recognize the power of our words, that we are just so powerful in who we are. And of course, we've had to laugh a lot because I'm Heidi Alfrey, this is Janet Taylor, and it gets confusing sometimes because we're both blonde, we both love this ministry experience, we both love unity, and people confuse us. And I went, last year, I went downstairs and someone came running over to me down in Meyer Hall and said, "I loved your Mother's Day talk." And I thought, unless you're talking about my Pomeranian, Sophia, I didn't do that talk. That was Janet. And so we've just had a lot of fun with growing together and doing life together.
Well, and I was actually excited. I think that, as we all reflect on the topic of forgiveness, it's such an easy thing. We can all think of those times in our life where we've had that opportunity with someone else or even with ourselves, where we know that the right thing to do would have been to forgive, and yet it's been a struggle sometimes for us to forgive others or to forgive ourselves. And so when Heidi and I were talking about this, I thought this was such a great topic because it really is one I think that's so easy for each of us to relate to. And I wanted to share that Heidi and I started working together 3 years ago, and it's been a wonderful journey, and we work very closely together. And so I always say that you have a lot of opportunity with those people that are closest to you to practice forgiveness.
It is absolutely. And when we're talking about prosperity, and this is the 4th week into our series, and when I've conducted many prosperity series, this is the time where people, because we talk about the vision and the belief system, and then all of a sudden it really comes down to what's blocking you from this vision, your desire, your passion being manifest, and it always comes to forgiveness. And what is the opportunity?
Well, and that's what I think that I want to say thanks to you, Heidi, because what you've been for me is a role model for opening your heart and creating that safe place for us to share those things and to forgive each other. And I think that I found, because you have such an open heart and are willing to talk about those tough subjects, that if you're not able to have those conversations, you can be friendly with somebody and you can be an acquaintance, but it's when you're really, and I just respect that so much about you, when you're willing to not only have the tough conversations, but really initiate them, that I just feel like I've learned so much from you about having that deeper sense of being connected, and that you and I have been able to do that because we're willing to say when we're hurt or when we're frustrated or what's going on with us. And so I think it is that your willingness to proactively have those tough conversations that sets up the sacred place to be able to forgive.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So thanks for that.
And the word that comes up for forgiveness for me a lot, and it did in our 9 o'clock class this morning, is vulnerability. Is the opportunity to say, I know when Duke years ago said, this lady's going to come join our team, and she's just powerful and dynamic, and she's blonde, and she's just a powerhouse, and I'm sort of, okay, and why? Am I not good enough? And And it was a really emotional process. And I recognized as Janet came on that she had a lot of qualities of my sister that I hadn't had healing around. So every time something came up for me, oh, Janet does that better than I do, or Janet has more wisdom around that, and ways that I was being mean to myself, I would go in to Janet and say, okay, this is what's up this week, and I really want to heal this, and can we have a conversation about this? And she'd say, Heidi, please don't put me on a pedestal, which is what I did to my sister all the time. I'm trying to figure this thing out. And I recognized what a great opportunity we had to do something new, to do something different that I wasn't able to do in my family because there wasn't that opportunity. And so I got to see how this world is so set up in every circumstance for me to go deeper. And for me to say, this was my old story, it's not working for me. It wasn't working for me then, it's not working for me now. And I see the plot of this world for me to awaken. And I so appreciate that as we are on the spiritual path, we bring people into our lives that can have that conversation that wasn't able to happen for me years ago. And then what's so great is you have been, our little 3 team has been so much more powerful than our 2 team. It's been a much more vibrant and alive experience because of the gifts that Janet brings and because of the gifts that I bring.
And the gifts that you bring and that Duke brings as well. So we know, Duke, that you're with us here in spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I was also thinking about, Heidi, is that the topic of forgiveness within unity is so powerful as well, because the story of our co-founder, Myrtle Fillmore, is really a story of forgiveness. And so when many of you know the story that when Myrtle, she was having many health challenges and had constantly been told she was sickly and was not going to live a full life, that she went to a lecture and heard this phrase that changed her life, which was that I'm a child of God, therefore I do not inherit illness. And what she did with that phrase was recognize that she had been not having faith in her own health and wholeness, not having faith in her ability to heal herself and her life. And so what Myrtle did is she spent 2 years forgiving her, asking her body to forgive her. And she talks about every hour on the hour sending up a prayer to each of her organs, asking for her body to forgive her for not having faith in it to heal itself. Mm-hmm. And so I think this topic of forgiveness certainly is very important in the context of prosperity, but is so fundamental to the reason why we're all sitting here today, because that is the process upon which the unity movement was founded. That opportunity for us to ask for forgiveness, not only to just give forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. And what you're saying, I see prosperity is so great because people, the first thing they think about is perhaps finances. But it includes relationship. It includes wellness of body, of mind, of spirit. It is a sense of well-being, which is why we call this the Center for Well-Being, that it's in all areas, that you can have a resistance to some illness, perhaps, as Myrtle did, as many people do when they become ill, that there's then a fight against it. Just as we do in relationship, a fight against the thing that we perceive to be against us, rather than an awareness or an awakening to, this is an opportunity for me to look at that wound, as Jerome's song was. How do I heal that's within me so I can be more of this channel of spirit that wants to flow through me? And it's so interesting, and I know we can all reflect on something in our life that felt overwhelming, or a person that just, we wish they weren't on the planet, that one. And that as we've been able to embrace it and lean into it, we've been able to gain more information about what's going on with the other person, with us, and then we recognize how important it was for that thing to happen, that it really allowed us to walk around in a more awakened state. So I invite us all, as we're considering forgiveness, to really look at the times or something that really you have overcome, and it has given you a place of a more expansive view of the world.
And I agree. And it's interesting. I can say from my own perspective that I can really see the journey that I've been on over decades, that forgiveness for me hasn't been something that happened overnight. I think of the story of Myrtle saying she was doing that for 2 years, and I'm thinking, man, that's a really fast process. Because it can take a lifetime to really get to that full sense of forgiveness of ourselves and others. And I know for me, I spent decades trying to find a sense of happiness and a sense of my own well-being outside of myself. And early on in my life, people would say that I had, externally, I had that prosperity. I had the money to do whatever I wanted to. And if the husband I was married to didn't seem to fit, then I just got another husband. And, you know, they were just, back then, they were real easy to come by. And I just kept thinking, if I find the right one, I'm going to be happy. And that didn't work. And along the way, along my personal journey, trying to find that happiness outside of myself, I was that person that hurt a lot of people and made life difficult for a lot of people. And my dear family and my dear friends would be more than happy to share with you how I was not on this path of spiritual path that I'm on right now. And I had to get to the point where it just wasn't working for me, that there wasn't enough money in the world and there weren't enough husbands in the world to make life work for me. And it was at that point when I had tried and failed that I walked into this church and started hearing things that was about there might be a different way. That there might be a way of being that I had never considered. And so for me, that was in 1991. And I had somebody tell me during the Christmas season, you guys who know me, I am so happy to be alive. And I'm really joyful. And somebody came up to me and said, you know, are you really that happy all the time? I mean, I think I was annoying them that I was so happy. I said, no, really, I'm pretty darn happy. Most of the time, I'm pretty darn happy. And so I feel like I'm a walking billboard for the process, that as miserable and frustrated and angry, there were times in my life that I felt angry at life because I kept trying to do things that didn't work, that I can say over a period of a couple of decades that my life is completely different. And it really was, a part of that was being able to also forgive myself for the things that I did when I was acting unskillfully. And I think that's part of that prosperity, is the prosperity of the joy that we can experience regardless of our external circumstances. Having money or not having money, there's a sense of joy and happiness that I know exists that can be tapped into at any time.